Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Royal Sussex Live. Welcome, one and all. Thank you so much for being here. Angela M., thank you so much for being here first. Okay. And Elaine Parker. Hi, everyone from the UK. Well, hello to you too. It's almost time for court again. Let's see. If it's almost 2 a.m. here, then that means it's almost 8 a.m. there, right? Yeah, I think so. It's just about 8 a.m. Well, 7:40, 7:39. Okay. Wow, I tell you, modern technology, how is it that sorry, that I'm all the way here in the Midwest, and yet I am communicating live with Elaine Parker, some, what, 5,000 miles away, 4,000 miles away? How is this possible? Modern technology. Wow. You got to love it. And just think 100 years ago, um, when did they lay the Atlantic cable? Well, anyway, um, I'm glad it's possible, right? We've come a long way. Sandra, you're freezing, huh? Yeah, I tell you, we are going to we're going to get blasted this weekend. This weekend, it is going to be from cold rain to ice, Arctic blast forecast to bring rare winter hazards to the south. A push of wintry weather is expected to move south this weekend with the potential for icy conditions. They say this is going to be a once in a lifetime thing this weekend. So let's hope it doesn't happen. Let's hope it doesn't happen. But the weather model keeps changing. So um, maybe it'll be a little bit more south, a little bit more north. We just don't know. Elaine Parker, thank you so much for the super sticker. And thank you again for being here. Okay, let's see. So, winter blast. I guess there's no other way to put it. The winter blast is coming. Yes, there is a winter blast on its way. Take a look at that map. Um, hmm. What does that say? Pivotal weather. That dark blue line that you see in the south, that is areas that is prone to ice storms from Georgia to the Texas Panhandle. Now, I want you guys to know that if I'm correct, everything in that blue area and further south of that is all wetland areas. Well, I mean, there's a lot of areas that's well developed, but those are areas where you will find a lot of things like, what is it, iguanas in Florida and alligators, lots of wetland mammals like beavers and stuff like that. I mean, it's a lot of wildlife through there. Um, that is basically what we call the South. The weird thing about the South is that, yes, Florida is South, but you don't really consider Florida down South. That's the term we use, down South. Now, Northern Florida, yeah, that's down South, but Central Florida and Southern Florida, you never hear anybody say, well, I'm going down south to see my family. You know, Tallahassee is further north in Florida. That's down south. Then you got Alabama, Mississippi, um, Louisiana, Arkansas, even Tennessee. People say, yep, I'm going down south. But I want you to notice something. Illinois uh, is somewhat not really tropical like a lot of the southern United States is, like Florida, but or subtropical. But Illinois it stretches so far down south that people that live in the southern part of the state have a very southern mentality. So a lot of things is regional and some things are geographic, but yeah, it just depends on who you talk to. But yeah, that's how I see it from where I am. I think that down south is that white and blue line, green line that you see going across there. Wait a minute, what's that? We had a lot of shark attacks over the last few weeks. Wow. You know, I think I saw something about that. I can't be sure. Um, but I forgot what the numbers were, but it was like some oddly high number, right? Oh, let me see. I don't want to say the name, but thank you, RD, for the Cash App today and Sunday. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, I just saw that come up on my phone. Thank you very much for that. Okay. So here's another map. You can see Little Rock, Arkansas, Memphis, all of those are in line. So the purple area, that is where they're expecting snow. And on this particular map, that kind of pink area, that is going to be rain mixed with snow and ice and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's just going to be some horrific weather. The reason why it's so dangerous is that people that live further north on the map, like Chicago, um, we're used to it. We're used to the ice and everything. And so a lot of the uh, northern cities, those who can afford it, they have begun the process of burying the power cables underground. And the advantage of that is that you keep it away from the weather. So a lot of places are not crowded with power lines like they would have been in the past. But in the rural areas, you know, that have grown up rather quickly, or even over time, just depends. They may not have the ability to do that. So they're saying that for some people, be prepared to be out of power. Are you ready for this? For at least 2 weeks and possibly a month. I don't know if you guys remember when Texas was out of power, what, a few years ago during the hottest days of summer, and it gets hot in Texas. Let me tell you, it gets hot in Texas, smoldering hot heat. And they were without power. For some reason, Texas likes to do things their own way. So they decided that they wanted to go alone. They're loners. They wanted to go alone. So Texas is not on the national power grid. So every state that you see except for Texas, if there is a power shortage, we can get power from all over the place. We can even get power from Canada. But Texas is not on the national grid. They didn't want it. The leaders in Texas, they just did not want it. So because of that, whenever something horrific happens, they're not able to draw power from other places. Now, This is the most ironic thing that I hate to say because it's so stupid. But okay, here we go. You ready for this? A lot of very conservative politicians, a lot of the, well, MAGA politicians and such, they say that the windmills, this, sustainable energy, that is no good for the environment, right? They have tried to make every excuse why windmills and solar is not good for the environment. So, when they had that awful power outage a few years ago during the height of summer, when people lost all their food, um, there was no air conditioning. It was just a disaster. Well, guess what? Guess which power source seemed to remain up and running? It was the wind and solar, but just not enough to help the state of Texas. But the wind and solar was just fine. But it was the, other power sources using fossil fuels and all that failed. So sometimes we can be a little bit too ornery for our own good, right? Amen. Um, I remember when they had the earthquake in San Francisco years ago, back in the 80s, wasn't it? And cell phones were just starting to become more common. And when all of the landline phones gave out, all of this cellular infrastructure was up and running. Even though it's primitive by today's standards, it wasn't even digital. The cellular was up and running. It was the best way to communicate with people is through the cell phones. So go figure. Anyway, that's I pray for the best. I don't want anyone to be without power or anything like that. And there's still a possibility that it will not go as bad as some people predict. The model changes by the hour. And when I say the model, that is the pattern that leads you to believe that the temperature will be this and that the wind will be that and the condensation will be such and such. Okay. Oh, no. Okay. Elaine Parker, you're not feeling well? Oh, my goodness. I'm so sorry to hear that. I do hope you feel better. I do hope you feel better. And we're going to send prayers to you. We're going to send all the positive energy that we can. Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Perlina. I have to tell you guys, your prayers did wonders for my. Remember, I asked you guys to pray for my brother? And let me tell you, my brother was in the worst possible way. And still, he struggles a lot. But miraculously, what was supposed to be a very short time left on this earth has turned into years rather than months. Okay. Years rather than months. So um, it does not hurt to pray. It could only help. It can only help. Okay. Oh, let's see here. I'm sorry. I'm looking at some of your comments. Okay. Let's move on. So the Royal Court of Justice. This is a old image of Harry from a couple years ago, I think. But that is the Ginger Avenger in the flesh. The Royal Court of Justice. Or as Barbara Walters would say, The Royal Wart of Worcester. Okay, I got to stop doing that. This is very serious. I think when I get nervous, I start doing my Barbara Walters impersonation or my Barbara Walters. uh, and see, once I start doing my Barbara Walters, it's so hard to turn it off. Right? Isn't that right? Weather Round, Heather Stroud, right? Wazel's Zone, Hazel Jones. See what I mean? I can't stop it. Once I start doing Barbara Walters, I cannot stop. It's like a complex. Okay. But no, you know what? It was a very, very tense day today. And Harry, Prince Harry, our son, Prince Harry, he came through today like a champ. They really tried to confound him. They tried to corner, they tried to box him in, and he was having none of it. He was absolutely having none of it. Now, I remember I just came across this while I was prepping. Do you guys remember when his father, Charles, who is of course is the king now, King Charles III, threw his weight around? I believe it was during the whole thing with Ravak, if I'm correct. Cool. King Charles looks sharp in navy suit as he visits royal courts of justice in central London. Why did he visit the courts of justice? Was it because Harry was calling into question Ravak? I think it was. I believe that's what it was that particular time. On the, what is it, 14 December, His Majesty King Charles III visited the Royal Court of Justice in London for an event celebrating the close relationship between the monarch and the judiciary. Just a reminder to you guys that that is his father's court, that everything that is done is in the name of the sovereign. It is with the sovereign's consent that there is a court. And as such, his father could never, ever be called as a witness, which means that he is essentially, um, what do you call it? Immune. He's immune from any type of justice. Oh, Legs says it was for the mirror ruling. Thank you, Legs. But I just remember how he just showed up. I mean, and it was just so convoluted to thank them for their work. He showed up to thank the court for their work. Charles did that. The king, who says that he does, at the time, he did not want to communicate with his son because he didn't want to appear to be biased. He wanted to remain as impartial as possible. Well, how impartial is it for you to show up? You just show up to court to thank everybody, to shake hands, to speak to judges and clerks and everyone else. You didn't have anything else to do. You don't have time for your son, but you can waddle your childbearing hips into a courthouse with your cherry lip gloss. You can go in there and shake hands with people. I mean, that right there seems like just the worst possible thing that he as sovereign could do, while his son is literally fighting for his dignity, fighting for the dignity of his family, of his mother. And then here he comes in there hand in pockets, childbearing hips, cherry lip gloss. I didn't like it. Today, we reminded the male group who is on trial and why. Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex. Today, cross examination was revealing in its weakness, assertive in tone, but collapsing immediately under scrutiny from Prince Harry. Associated couldn't wait to get him off the stand. You hear me? They could not wait to get him off the stand, questioning him for just 2 hours and avoiding the 10 of his 14 articles entirely. Prince Harry is nobody's fool. Now, I want you guys to know that this is not the way this was supposed to go. They had 14 articles. 14 articles. They avoided 10 of them because they were afraid that he would answer, that he would respond, that he would actually have a good handle on exactly what was going on. He was too aware. He was not even supposed to be on the witness stand at that point. But they brought him up there hoping to confuse and confound him. You're not going to throw someone off their points if they are telling the truth. Whatever points that he had to make, it wasn't rehearsed, it was the truth. You're not going to throw someone off like that. It'd be different if he was rehearsed and a liar. He did not need to rehearse, he lived it. He didn't have to lie because he was telling the truth. The truth was on his side. No matter what happens, whatever the outcome, it goes on the record. It goes on the record that Harry responded truthfully and with force. We're going to go through these things from today. First of all, how good did he look walking in that place? How good did he look walking in that place? Ladies and gentlemen, I submit to you the Ginger Flippin' Avenger. That is the Ginger Avenger. And he's not having it. You know, I haven't seen anybody strut that cool since the Jeffersons. I haven't seen anybody walk that cool since Wesley Snipes in Passenger 57. Remember Wesley Snipes said, always bet on black. And then he did that cool walk. There you go. That's what Harry was doing today. When the truth is on your side, whatever the outcome, they may not give you justice, but you can be darn sure they respect you. Whether they can admit it or not, you will be respected. And that he stood up for his wife. Let's see, is this it right here? Oh, no, that's the wrong one. Look at how small that is. I don't want that one. I do not want that one. That is for the, what do you call it? Let me try that one more time. You know, I used to have it like right here, and I don't know what happened to it. Or is this it? No, I'm afraid not. Oh, well, let's go with that one. That's right. The Ginger Avenger. I tell you, there are some days that this man makes me so proud. He makes me so proud. It lets me know that I'm on the right side of history. Whatever happens, I know I'm on the right side of history. And of course, you can probably recognize everybody's looking over to their right side. That's where those well wishers were there yelling, Harry, we love you, Harry. Good luck, Harry. That's a beautiful thing. It really is. That is a beautiful thing. The way that they were there to encourage him, to let him know that he's loved. And mind you, these people were out standing out in the rain. They spent the day with the press out in the rain. There was no shelter for them. They were in the rain. Impeccably dressed, very well turned out, and ready to mix it up with the best legal representation available to the Associated Newspapers Limited. So, at some point, of course, Prince Harry names Prince William and Kate Middleton in court statement during tabloid trial. Duke of Sussex listed his brother and sister-in-law as past contacts in legal filing, outlining who he was in regular communication with during the period covered by his claims. You know, they were trying to make the case that it was people within Harry's circle that that was leaking information, that were the sources of information. That was the case that they were trying to make. So, what do you need to know? Prince Harry named his dim witted brother and half witted sister in law in a witness statement filed as part of the High Court lawsuit against the publishers of the Daily Mail. The list was included to outline people Harry says he was in regular contact with between about 1996 to 2014, supporting his claims that private information could only have been obtained unlawfully. Harry remains estranged from his brother, William, with no plans to see either William or his father, King Charles, during his current visit to the UK for the trial. At least we don't know of any plans to see his father. The list was included as part of Harry's legal argument to outline a circle of people that he says he was in regular contact with during the periods of 1996 to 2014. Harry alleges that private details appearing in the press coverage could only have come from unlawfully obtained information shared within trusted relationships, meaning that people listened in on his voicemails and such. People magazine was inside the courtroom, and according to the witness statement, Harry named 10 associates he said he was in regular contact with during the relevant period, including his brother and sister in law, his father, and former girlfriend Chelsea Davy. Harry's description of William focused on their closeness at the time, underscoring the level of trust he says existed between them during those years. His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales, my brother William, the statement read, due to his position, the press have always been very interested in him. As brothers, we naturally discuss personal aspects of our lives as we trusted each other with the highly sensitive information we shared about our private family and professional lives, which is heartbreaking to see something like that, because you certainly cannot trust them now. The inclusion of William comes amid a well documented years of long rifts between the brothers. During Harry's current visit to the UK for the trial, okay, yes, there's no plans. How many times are they going to tell us there's no plans? Anyway, Charles was listed next in the statement. Again, you don't know that you have any level of privacy with Charles because of the Queen Consort. His Majesty King Charles, my father, the statement said, during the relevant period, my father and I were in regular contact. He was also of great interest to the press due to his position. My private information would have been present on voicemails. You hear that, you guys? His private information would have been present on voicemails. And that is the whole point, is that these that information was illegally sought after and obtained illegally. So the information would have been present on voicemails containing highly personal, private, and sensitive information left on his landline phone by me, other members of my family, and the royal household. So not only Harry leaving messages for his father, but also other members of the royal household, other members of the family. And of course, royal household includes all the courtiers and such. Despite being in the UK at the same time, Harry also has, oh my God, if they tell me one more time that he's not planning to meet with somebody, come on, People Magazine, let's stick with this. Okay, Chelsea Davy, whom Harry dated on and off from 2004 to around 2010, was also included in the list. In the statement, Harry detailed the long distance nature of their relationship and the private communication they shared. So let me say one more time, just in case people are not clear about this. In the early days of voicemail, there was a single code for everyone to use when you purchase the phone. If they can figure out which company you have or which purchase, where you purchased the phone, they can figure out what the code is. This is a mistake, an oversight that tens of thousands of people across the UK made with their mobile phones. So it wasn't just, people being unaware that they, were somehow foolish. It was the assumption that your code number was your code number. They, in some cases, they just never told you, gee, you better change that code number. Otherwise, anybody can use it. And there was also some instances where people changed their phone number. And when the tabloid media could not figure out your phone number so that they can do this little stunt, there were cases where they literally paid people at the phone company to turn over your information. Okay? It was not as difficult as you would believe. Even today, because so many of us have our bank details in our voicemails, our mobile phone, our cell phones are really a window into our personal lives, right? If you can get someone's phone while it's unlocked, you can see their family members, you can see their bank details, where they live, their shopping habits. Everything is in that phone. Now imagine you go through all that trouble to keep your phone secure, and someone contacts your phone carrier and they switch the SIM card from your phone to another phone, which will give them the ability to get into your bank. They can access your bank like that, your credit cards. This is still happening. So before you judge them, and I'm not saying you guys are, but before you judge them for being so laxed about their personal information, their personal security, this is something that can happen to any of us. There was even a woman who was targeted one time, and she made a notation with the phone company to never switch the phone unless she is physically in the store with her identification. And they did it anyway. It happened to her again. We're all vulnerable. So keeping your phone carrier private, keeping your number within close friends and such is very important, but it's not impossible for someone to access our records illegally. And that's what happened to a lot of celebrities. That's what happened to the royal family. And those same people that we see every weekend on these panels telling us how Harry is unhinged and how he overreacts and how he's angry. He's unstable. These are the same people that are responsible for that stuff. These are the same people that hired detectives, which are nothing more than thugs who couldn't make it into law enforcement, thugs who have served prison time for larceny and other petty crimes, and sometimes violent crimes. Lex says, sick of people always involving that family with Harry and Meghan. Is a clear campaign to keep the British royal family in the news by linking them to Harry and Meghan. British royal family needs relevance. Yes, they are in dire need of relevance, desperately seeking relevance. Because if they had to depend on the strength of their personality, their wit, or their charm, they would have none of it. There you go. Thirsty for relevance. That's what they are. Thirsty for relevance. I'm going to make a little side note here because I don't want to stray too far from the topic. But this is why I don't like to use Zelle. I've had some friends ask me, well, I use Zelle. I never had a problem. You know what the problem with Zelle is? Let me tell you one of the most recent cons that I heard involving Zelle. A tattoo artist um, was expecting a payment, a deposit before he started working, right? And the person said, oh, sure. So the person gave him, I believe it went like this. The person sent him a link or whatever it was. And he said that the money did not show up in his account. Or I think he said he sent the money to his account and he didn't see it. He said, oh, that's because, you have a business. You should have a business Zelle account or some crap like that, he told the guy. And so he sent him a very convincing link where he was supposed to, guess what, add his bank details. And it would have been done in such a way that this person would have cleaned out this young business owner, entrepreneur's bank account. And that's why I don't like Zelle, because it is directly attached to your bank account. And generally speaking, once that money is gone, once you wire that money somewhere, you cannot get it back. It is rare that the banks will give you that money back, because once it's gone, when it goes to another country, it's gone. And there's nothing they can do to reverse that. So, yes, there might be a fee with, other things out there. But trust me, you want to keep your bank account as far away from the wrong person as possible, especially a casual business transaction. Don't do it. Don't do it. I don't like to fool with it. And I always hear people tell me, well, I've never had a problem with it. Okay, you never had a problem with it. I don't even want to get that close. I do not want to get that close. Yeah, PayPal, Cash App, they have fees, but you're not giving your bank details. There's no, you know, reason for you to share your bank details with a stranger, like your account number and all that kind of. You don't have to share any of that stuff. You just share your link to your Cash App or PayPal. Yeah, I am terrified of using Zelle. I've rarely used it over the years. So anyway, I don't want to tell you guys what to do, but I heard that little thing about this tattoo artist and the way someone was trying to say, oh, but you have to have a business account, and so here's a link for the business Zelle. I don't even think that exists, but it was so convincing, and he almost fell for it. So that's Davies, right? Cressida Davies, right? I think so. I always confuse the two of them, but look at how dapper Harry looks. Look at how handsome he looks in his uniform. My goodness. And then, of course, there's the Ginger Avenger. So this happened today. This happened today. Um, you know what? I don't even want to go through People magazine because they didn't already got on my nerves today. So let me just stick with Feminagra. Prince Harry returned to the witness box today and laid out in stark terms why he is fighting the publisher of the Daily Mail. As his written statement was released alongside live testimony, the Duke of Sussex described a lifetime of intrusion that began after his mother's death and escalated into what he called constant surveillance, harassment, and commercial exploitation. Now, remember, you guys, at the time, they were supposed to leave the kids alone. Do you remember that promise? We did certain things to your mom, but it's going to be hands off with the two princes. And that is not what happened. There were photos of Harry at school, and I'm not talking about as an adult. I'm talking about young Harry. Um, making it a big national story that he got injured and all that kind of stuff. That was supposed to be private. And they were more apt to report on Harry and less likely so to report on William. Still too close for my taste. Still too close for me. I'd rather not. I don't even use it enough to know the difference, but I'm afraid of it. What is that? I feel it like if Prince Harry is a relative in the palaces. Any have any feel very bad about the things that they have done. Oh, I wish those people seem like sociopaths. They have no conscience. I wish that I mean his father is the king and he is hopeless. He can't do anything to help his son. He won't do anything to help his son. That's why I'm so bothered. It agitates me knowing that some of the people that have been the most cruel literally watched Harry grow up. They watched his mother being picked apart. And they take pleasure in not only attacking him, but his wife. They're trying to destroy any chance of happiness for Harry. They literally want to rip away anything that resembles happiness. They seem determined to tear their marriage apart. He told the court he grew up conditioned to accept behavior without complaint. I'm sorry, accept the press behavior without complaint. The palace culture demanded silence. That expectation held until 2016 when the coverage of his relationship. Oh, sorry. I'm trying to in here. 1 second. Okay. Um, that expectation held until 2016 when the coverage of his relationship with Meghan turned hostile, intrusive, and at times racist. Harry said that failure to act then became impossible to live with. This case, he insisted, exists to force accountability for how information was gathered and sold. By the end of the afternoon, Harry appeared visibly emotional. He described the process as traumatic and said the litigation had only worsened his life. His voice broke as he told the court that Associated Newspapers Limited, also known as the Daily Mail, had made his wife's life an absolute misery. He then bowed and left the courtroom. In his witness statement, Harry explained how the royal family's long-standing rule of never complain, never explain shaped his response to the press. He said there was no alternative offered to him. The institution handled legal advice, press relationships, responses, leaving him without independent recourse. Without independent recourse, he could not say anything. He wasn't expected to say anything because the palace would handle things. The only thing is, they didn't. They did not handle it. They did not care. The control extended to legal knowledge. Harry said he believed sworn denials given by associated executives during the Leveson inquiry. He told the court he felt retaliation if he challenged them. The court approached. He said he felt aggressive and intimidated. He's sorry. He said the mail's approach, he said it felt aggressive and intimidating. He accepted those denials because he felt like he had no choice. He had no choice but to accept those denials. He didn't believe it, I suppose, but he had to accept it. Only years later did he begin to understand the scale of what he now alleges was unlawful information gathering. He said the silence imposed on him was later weaponized against him, with newspapers questioning why he had not complained sooner. Now, if in my opinion, what he's saying is that his family did not want him to question anything, that his family encouraged him to toe the party line. Never complain, never explain, do nothing, say nothing. That's the best way to do it, is to say nothing. Like he said, he was conditioned to not challenge them. And so the press, the tabloids, and in this case, the Daily Mail's lawyers are saying that, oh, he should have said something sooner if he knew this was going on. He should have said something sooner if he knew that was going on. But the thing is, Harry is trying not to say what I'm about to say. His father, his stepmother, his brother, all of them were in cahoots with the tabloids, with the Royal Rota, with the Daily Mail. They were all in cahoots. And the Daily Mail was assured that Harry would never do exactly what he's doing right now. Do you understand what I'm saying? They assured him that the tabloids were certain that he would not do this because his father would not allow it, because his brother would not allow it. It was only in leaving that institution, taking a step back away from that institution, that allows him to do this. See, it's certain things that you can do outside of an institution that you can't do on the inside. If you are going to challenge an institution, your case is stronger when you're not a part of it. Now, he can never not be royal. He can never really not be a member of that household, but he is not dependent upon their courtiers. He has no relationship with the press. That's his family that has that. His family has a relationship with the British government and governments around the world. He's flying solo. Following the death of my mother in 1997, when I was 12 years old and her treatment at the hands of the press, I have always had an uneasy relationship with them. However, as a member of the institution, the policy was never complained, never explained. There was no alternative. I was conditioned to accept it. These are Harry's words. I was conditioned to accept it. For the most part, I accepted the interest in the performing of my public function. However, in late 2016, when my relationship with Meghan, my now wife, became public, I started to become increasingly troubled by the approach of not taking action against the press in the wake of vicious, persistent attacks on, harassment of, and intrusive, sometimes racist articles concerning Meghan. The thing that bothers me about that thing he just said, among other things that bother me, I mean, it bothers me that he had to say it in the first place, but his brother threatened to sue the Tatler because of their Catherine the Great article. His brother threatened to sue, what was it, Mach or whatever press, the ones that took the photos from the ski holiday last year. His brother did sue that magazine that posted the pictures of his wife's flapjacks, those little Johnny cakes. Remember they took those pictures of those little Johnny cakes, those little flapjacks, the those folded what do they call that, crepes. They took some pictures of her crepes, those hollow, non-fluffy, coarse looking crepes that they took a picture of. Them. Yeah. Anyway, they took some pictures, and what happened? He sued them. Also, let me point out that his father, I'm not his father, but his brother settled out of court with Rupert Murdoch, settled out of court. Took a, what was it, a 7-figure payment? All of this is happening at the same time. They discourage Harry from taking action. And then when Harry asked his grandmother, you know, can we sue them? Yes. And what happens? His father steps in, and that's the end of it. Just like with his security. His grandmother says he's supposed to have security. That's very important. And what happened? His father steps in, and that's the end of it. The man who was regent in all but name only, which is why this bothers me. Because once again, his father steps in. You see the pattern? Anyway, that's enough about Kate's griddle cakes. From reporting to surveillance and stalking, Harry told the court that his private life had been commercialized since he was a teenager. He alleged journalists listened to calls, blagging travel details, tracking flights, and turning up in places where no one should have known he was present. No one should have known that. He singled out incidents in Africa involving the Mail on Sunday, journalists Barbara Jones and Carolyn Graham. According to Harry, they appeared repeatedly at remote locations during his work there. He said it felt like constant surveillance rather than reporting. In one case, he believed access was gained by blogging a local ranger. Now, let's make sure we all understand the word blagging. I'm going to put it here in the chat so you can see the word that I'm using. And also, I'm going to look it up so we can all be on the same page. Blagging, the action of obtaining something by using persuasion or guile. Most people are comfortable with some level of blagging, the action of obtaining private or confidential information by impersonation, or another method of deception. Blagging is an offense under the Data Protection Act. So that means here in the US, it violates the Data Protection Act. Blagging is in informal British English, blag, that is a verb. Manage to obtain something by using persuasion or guile. Did I say guile? It's guile. I'm sorry about that. They blagged 2 free tickets to France. In other words, deception. They used deception to get 2 free tickets to France, as an example. Managed to obtain private or confidential information by impersonation or another method of deception. Here's another example. They were often able to hack phones because they had blagged phone numbers and passwords. Another example, steal something in a violent robbery or raid. I could lie in wait and blag her fur coat. Origins. That word comes from the 19th century, perhaps from French blagueur, or someone who tells lies. Okay? Are we okay with blagueur, blagging? There we go. So he believes access was gained by blagging a local ranger. They used deception to get the information out of a local ranger. I mean, imagine that. I don't know how many white women would show up in an area in Africa where Harry just happens to be, right? So if Harry, one of the few white people in the area, if someone is looking for him and they say, well, I'm from the UK or blah, 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 Harry's expecting us. Tell us where he is. Well, this um, park ranger, the local ranger, how would he know any different? We don't get many people that look like Harry or Barbara Jones or Carolyn Graham. We don't get many people. They must be with him. He also revisited earlier coverage tied to his relationship. He said the Daily Mail was the first outlet to name Chelsea Davy, after which her privacy disappeared overnight. Articles followed that went into extraordinary detail. Harry told the court that those stories drove paranoia and mistrust. He believed people close to him must be leaking. When he now believes unlawful information gathering, not friends, sat behind the detail in some stories. So picture this. The tabloids want people to believe that Meghan is the cause of Harry's estrangement from his old friends, right? What was the cause of the estrangement from his friends back in those days? I believe the tabloids were the cause. In this instance, at least we can say, well, Harry moved away. Harry got married, grew up, and moved away. But in those days, Harry couldn't even date because of the tabloids. I think they really overstate this idea that he has no old friends over there. That is based on what they want us to believe, not the actual facts. Harry can't afford to have an open relationship with friends anywhere, because if he does, then that means the tabloids are going to come and make their lives a living hell. They're going to do everything that they can to destroy that relationship. So Feminager goes on to say, friends, access, and stories, the collapse under scrutiny. Much of today's cross-examination focused on attempts to frame journalists as part of Harry's social circle. I want you to listen to this. They frame journalists as part of Harry's social circle. Those are his friends, they're trying to say. He rejected that claim repeatedly. Asked whether he was friends with reporters who wrote about him, Harry said he never had been. Okay? He's never been friends with those people. But that's what they want you to believe. Because that way they can make it appear as though Harry was leaking stories on himself. That is their defense, by the way, is that the calls weren't coming from inside the house. The calls were coming from Harry. That's their defense. That included Katie Nichols and Rebecca English. Yes, that Rebecca English, the Loompa Loompa. Defense counsel suggested closeness, private conversations, and shared social spaces. Harry disagreed. He said everyone knew who these journalists were, which meant people guarded their words around them. He questioned why private investigators were used. let me get to bail. He asked why private investigators were used if sources were so strong. Do you understand what he's saying? If you're getting information from me, if you're getting information from my brother and anyone I call a close friend, then why did you need investigators? What was the point of having investigators if I'm giving you what you need? If I'm leaking stories on myself, if I'm telling you things about my girlfriend, why do you need private investigators? Harry also addressed claims involving Daily Mail journalist Charlotte Griffiths. The defense suggested he met her in Ibiza. Harry corrected the record. He told the court he had never been to Ibiza until visiting with his wife, Meghan. Harry said he met Griffith at a house party and did not know who she was at the time. He rejected suggestions of later social contact. Do I need to do that again? He had never been to Ibiza. So how did he meet her in Ibiza and he had never been there? The pattern, Harry argued, was consistent. Journalists turned up at events, created the impression of access, and later presented that proximity as sourcing. When tested on details, those narratives did not hold. And now a final thought from Feminegra. Prince Harry closed his evidence by returning to the same point he opened with. His life, he said, was never open season. He described the suggestion that he has no right to privacy as disgusting. Revisiting these stories, he told the court, had been deeply distressing. The case now moves on, but the picture Harry painted today was clear. He described a system that profited from intrusion while hiding behind claims of legitimacy. By speaking under oath, the Duke of Sussex has placed those methods under direct scrutiny and forced them into open for the courts. He forced them into the open for the courts, media, and royal institution to reckon with. Associated Newspaper Limited denies any wrongdoing and argues that the claims are out of time, insisting its journalists acted lawfully and in the public interest. We can go as far back as Rebecca Brooks. When Rebecca Brooks, what was she working for? News of the World, was it? When Rebecca Brooks, back in the day, said, they asked her directly, had she ever broken any laws? I'm using some paraphrasing here. And she said, yeah, if we need to get a story, if we thought that someone was in danger or whatever the reason, she admitted that everything was not on the up and up, that they would bend the law. They would break the law, in so many words, I am alleging, that they would break the law just to get the story. So does anybody think that the Daily Mail would do anything different? That somehow one of the crappiest newspapers out there, that they are above board, that they are these very pious, saintly people that would never bend the truth or break the law or blag or con their way into a situation. Because if that's not how they work, they are just using ethical sources to figure out where Harry was all the time. They just happened to know every conversation that Harry was having because they just knew the right person to ask. These were legal sources. We never broke the law. Here's a composite sketch of Prince Harry on the stand. Now, remember, he was only on there for 2 hours. There was some talk that he might be on there for, what, 2 days? They only went over 4 of the 14 items because Harry's responses were so effective. He was able to slice right through the nonsense. And as such, things were not going well for the defense. Things were not going well for them at all. The only thing they could think of was, we got to get this guy off of the witness stand. Harry close to tears as he tells court of Meghan's misery. Sadly, there's going to be a campaign. Well, actually, it's happening as we speak. There's a campaign of people on the social media making every excuse in the world why Harry is being untruthful, that he is lying, that he made deals with. This is the same stuff they said about Diana. It would make sense that as a member of the British royal family, especially when you're in the United Kingdom, you're going to have some relationship with these people. So you have to pacify them by spending time, which is, part of your role as a royal. These people are going to go on these trips with you. These people are going to show up at events with you. They're going to travel as though they're your entourage. They're going to have drinks and coffee with you. But your job is to say as little as possible. So I'm going to play this for you. Got a little sound bite. God, this stuff really does frustrate me, though. It does frustrate me. It is such a vast conspiracy.
December 2004. I think the Associated Newspapers barrister was really trying to use that article as a way of suggesting that actually it was Prince Harry's friends who were leaking some of this information to the press, and that actually the source was the Palace Press Office, because all along within this case, Prince Harry is accusing them of using unlawful means to try and gain information from him. In his written statement, it also comes across loud and clear, this sense that for him, this isn't just a personal crusade. He wants to do this for the wider social good. And of course, this is something we've heard from him quite a lot over the years. But in that written statement, he says there is obviously a personal element to bringing this claim, motivated by truth, justice, and accountability. But it's not just about me. He says, if the most influential newspaper company can successfully evade justice, then in my opinion, the whole country is doomed. But also it was the end of his time in the witness stand that was particularly moving in many ways. His own barrister saying to him, how do you feel now about what Associated Newspapers did to you? And he said, in the course of this litigation, it has only got worse, not better. I think it is fundamentally wrong to put all of us through this again when all we were asking for was an apology and accountability. It is a horrible experience, and the worst of it is sitting up here and taking a stand against them, and they continue to come after me. He then went on to say, as his voice cracked and he appeared close to tears, "They've made my wife's life a misery." Now, this court case is due to go on for the next 9 weeks. As the judge pointed out to Harry, it will be up to his barrister to continue to make his point in court. December.
Knowing everything that I know, having encountered people, even if it's a stranger, that would tell me complete talking points. They would repeat these talking points from the press. And so right now, there's a fever pitch effort of people in the chat groups, in the comment sections, all over social media. Bots, of course, a lot of it is bots. We're going to get inundated with people trying to explain to us, trying to gaslight us that this is all Harry's fault, that he changed after he married Meghan. Meghan is putting him up to this. Just about any excuse in the world, except that the people that appear on these panels, the people that write the articles, and a lot of people with these social media sites, they are there to earn money. And there is big money in blaming Harry and Meghan, mostly Meghan, for the Arctic storm that is going to sweep across the United States. Blame Meghan for the floods in Italy, for the heat wave in Spain. Whatever's going on, they find a way to make it Meghan's fault. Drought, Meghan did it. She did it. If it wasn't for the fact that she drinks water, then there would be no droughts. This is an all-day, everyday thing. And there's no way in the world that Meghan could have ever thought that she could be vilified around the world by people that don't know her, had never met her, and probably didn't even know anything about her until she married Harry. First, we heard some good things, and now everything is wrong. Narcissist, sociopath, and on and on and on. And it's not just profit. They mean to destroy the two of them for going against the status quo, for not allowing them to abuse them within the safety of the UK. Because they left the UK, they're going to make sure that this follows them wherever they go. They wish they had purchased a house in Portugal. That way it wouldn't be so far to travel. Jan Moyer could go to Portugal rather than trying to fly all the way out to California. She'd like that. But there's our hero right there, David Sherborne. That is Harry's barrister, and he does God's work. He's doing an amazing job. As a matter of fact, Harry didn't know that any of this was possible, that it would be any way to get some accountability from these tabloids. He needed a really good lawyer for that. And enters David Sherborne. Now, Imogene James and Tom, was it Sizemond, whatever. So I tried to put these in the best possible order so you can get an idea of what happened in court today. So the Duke of Sussex is called up and walks over to the witness box. He is sworn in before sitting down. First, some housekeeping, with Prince Harry's title being discussed. There was, there are chuckles when he's asked by his lawyer, David Sherborne, how he'd like to be referred to. And Harry said, same as last time. Which is kind of funny because this is what, the third or fourth time that they've been in court like this? As a reminder, there are no cameras inside court, but myself and other BBC reporters are here and will bring you updates on this page. Which, by the way, if you want that page for the updates, I'll give you the link right now since I'm thinking about it. I'll give you the link. And throughout the day, you can check this yourself. There you go, right there. That's for the BBC. And I will put that at the top of the chat for your consideration. And then you can find these updates yourself. It should take you directly to that page. Following etiquette checks, lawyers agreed to call him Prince Harry. David Sherborne is used to questioning Prince Harry following the Duke's mammoth stint in the witness box during his case against the Mirror Group newspaper. But a few minutes ago, we said the barrister double-checked the etiquette around Harry's title. See there? They wanted to get that right. Just as a matter of respect. So, got that small. Let me try to make this bigger so I can see it. Okay. So, he said the Duke should be addressed as Your Royal Highness the first time, and then Sir, right? So the first time you address him is Your Royal Highness. And then after that is Sir this, Sir that, Sir blah, 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 blah. Was that acceptable? How would he like to be addressed? Same as last time, Prince Harry responded fairly bluntly. As my colleague Imogene James pointed out, Sherborne asked for a reminder and they agreed to call him Prince Harry. Okay, so not Your Highness, not Sir, just Prince Harry. Lex says the press scapegoat Meghan to project and because hierarchy. All right, to project and because of hierarchy. Everything they said of Meghan can apply to the cow and Kate. They display their xenophobia and racism. Absolutely. And thank you for that, Lex. Very, very well put. Okay. Shall we go to the next one? I have about 8 of these slides. So just so you know, there's about 8 of them. The print is very small, but I'll do the best I can. So Prince Harry is now back in the witness box, being questioned by Anthony White, KC, which I think is King's Court, who represents Associated Newspapers Limited. White says no complaint was made by Harry or on his behalf. No complaints were made by Harry or on his behalf about articles he's questioning at the time of publication. This because Prince Harry believed at the time the information they contained came from legitimate sources, White suggests. The Duke agrees to an extent, but says he wouldn't have been able to complain even if he wanted due to the institution of the royal family. Again, Harry could not complain if he wanted to because the institution would not allow it. Prince Harry says because the articles cited sources, it was pretty convincing at the time that this was true. He goes on to say that the moment something private comes out, the circle of trust decreases almost immediately, and that he wouldn't speak about things that were included in the articles openly. So Harry's saying very clearly that once any little thing comes out, he clams up. He clams up. He's not going to say anything. But yet, very personal and intimate details continued. So I guess he's saying first, I assume, okay, they must have legally found that out. But when he's saying nothing and they're sharing details, including his words or things that happened according to whatever he said personally to someone, they were blogging and listening to his messages and such. Otherwise, how would they know? How would they know? If it came from one of his girlfriends, then they should have quoted the girlfriend. If it came from his brother, then they should have quoted the brother. But of course, they wouldn't do that. Number one, it did not likely come from any of them. It was because of their continued surveillance. So, asked by Anthony White, the lawyer for the publisher of the Daily Mail, if he was friends with some of the journalists who wrote the articles he's complaining about, the Duke says, I am not friends with these journalists. I never have been. Focusing on Katie Nicholl, who was a royal correspondent for the Mail on Sunday, White puts it to Prince Harry that she was part of his social circle. The Duke disagrees. White then suggests Nichols met Prince Harry personally at a party in 2003, which he was hosting at Kensington Palace. He alleges Prince Harry invited her. The prince says, sure, he didn't. She says he's sure he didn't invite her in, but he remembers the party. So he didn't invite her in, but he remembers the party. White and the Duke agree she was at various parties around this time within his social circle. Miss Nichols made a career out of turning up at these events, also known as being a crasher, and making it seem like she had these sources, the Duke alleges. You know, if one of the reporters that you are familiar with, not friends with, but familiar with, if they show up at these events, if people on staff recognize this person as someone who was at the last party, what is the likelihood that that person would be blocked from entering? I'm just saying, she used her familiarity as a means, I'm alleging, to enter these spaces. And by doing so, it made it convincing that someone leaked things to her and she just happened to print them. Okay, next. So, Sean Coughlin, is that right? Royal correspondent. Although we talk about Prince Harry being in the witness box, he's sitting in a kind of raised wooden booth behind a computer screen and an array of microphones. He's quite tall, so has to crane over slightly. The trial isn't in one of those historic courtrooms with lots of mahogany and Victorian furnishing. It is more like a university lecture room kitted out by IKEA with lots of boxes and folders and papers on desk. There are rows of lawyers behind Prince Harry and the opposing side, tapping away energetically on laptops. Or maybe they're cash registers. as the court as the court cases costing both sides huge amounts of money. Okay, next, Harry. If her sources were so good, why was she using private investigators? So again, Anthony White is continuing to question Prince Harry about Mail on Sunday's royal journalist Katie Nichols. White alleges she would go to the same or familiar or similar, that is, nightclubs as the prince and polo games. Everybody knew who she was, so nobody would loose lipped around her. The Duke goes on to say, if the source were so good and she was hanging out with all my friends, then why was she using private investigators? He argues with the lawyer. Listen, y'all, Harry got kind of sassy. Let me just tell you, Harry got a bit sassy up there on the stand. As a matter of fact, the judge had to talk to him about that. Judge reminds Prince Harry he should answer questions, not argue the case. The judge interrupts at this point. He says Prince Harry is tending to argue back to the lawyer, but his job is to answer questions that are put to him. You don't have to bear the burden of arguing the case, the judge tells the Duke. Okay. Prince Harry was not having it. I'm telling you, Harry got a little sassy up there. And can you blame him? Okay, next. That was a tetchy exchange. It's been a fairly scratchy and is it tetchy? Touchy? Anyway, exchange so far between Prince Harry and Associated Barrister Anthony White. Harry bristled at the idea that some of the journalists who have written these disputed articles might have been part of his friendship circle. When it's suggested that the male journalists might have been in the same clubs as him, the prince snaps, good for her. Woo! Lord have mercy. Now, you see, you know what they needed? They needed a whole bunch of African American women in that courtroom. It would have been a callback hour. That's right. Amen. You tell them. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. See, that's what was needed. Harry needed some sisters from the U.S. He needed Deshawn, Shaniqua, Tisha. That's who he needed. He needed all of them to be in the amen section. Because I'm telling you, they would have definitely done some callbacks. You would have thought you were in church. You would have thought you were in church. Good for her. And good for Harry. Okay, next. Why do I like that so much? Good for her. Didn't see that in People magazine, did you? I'm telling you guys, use that link that I gave you because there's a lot of good stuff that you can find like this. Harry witness statement is published. As the back and forth continues, we've received a copy of Prince Harry's witness statement. In it, he outlines his reason for bringing the case against the Mail publishers. He says, following the death of my mother in 1997, when I was 12 years old, and her treatment at the hands of the press, I have always had an uneasy relationship with them. However, as a member of the institution, the policy of never complain, never explain. That's what the policy was. There was no alternative. I was conditioned to accept it. For the most part, I accepted the interest in my performing my public functions. However, in late 2016, when my relationship with Meghan, now my wife, became public, I started to become increasingly troubled by the approach of not taking action against the press in the wake of vicious, persistent attacks on harassment and intrusive, sometimes racist articles concerning Meghan. He says that this case is about holding to account the journalists, executives, and editors he says have used unlawful information gathering against him. We're pouring through the details of the statement here in the newsroom and will bring you a roundup of the key lines soon. For now, let's get back to court. Now, that is the words, of course, of whichever one of them reporters. So, Prince Harry says he wasn't allowed to complain about press, blaming institution of royal family. When Anthony White, for the publisher of the Mail, is now asking Prince Harry why he didn't complain about certain articles when they were published, again, Prince Harry referenced the institution, meaning the royal family. I wasn't allowed to complain, he says. An article from 2002 about his friendship with the sports presenter, Natalie Pinkham, is now in question. It was published by Katie Nichols, mentioned in our earlier post. White says the information in it came from Pinkham herself after Nichols called her. I strongly reject that, the Duke says, arguing Pinkham knew who Nichols was. And while she did have a phone conversation with Nichols, she didn't feed her lines for the story. He accuses Nichols of inventing quotes for the narrative and continued to strongly deny that Pinkham and Nichols had a good relationship or any relationship at all. I believe that Natalie Pinkham's number was obtained. In other words, there's yet another example. According to Harry, her number was obtained. It wasn't given, it was obtained, meaning that she got the number by whatever means possible. Hindsight is a beautiful thing. Prince Harry says when pushed on delayed complaints. By the way, you guys, I know I never say it. Please hit the thumbs up. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. That is how we're paying for this hour. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. You got to hit those thumbs up. That's how we get paid. Okay. We now move on to Rebecca English, who was a royal correspondent for the Daily Mail from 2004 to 2020. She's now the paper's royal editor. Prince Harry says he has spoken to English on a number of occasions, as she was part of the cohort of journalists that would accompany the royals on tour. He says it was a pretty hard thing to be forced to work alongside these people, despite them sharing articles about his private life. Anthony White for Associated News Limited or whatever says English recalls that Prince Harry told her he read everything published about him and he had a notebook where he wrote down who published what about him. Prince Harry says he doesn't recall this. When asked again why he didn't complain to English about articles being written, the prince says, hindsight is a beautiful thing, Mr. White. This is why I love Harry so much. Harry is messy AF. Do y'all hear me? Harry is messy. Very messy. I'm sure that on occasion, it takes everything Meghan has to restrain him because Harry don't mind going there. You know how they say good cop, bad cop? Meghan is the good cop. Harry is the one that wants to rough up somebody, figuratively speaking, of course. Okay. Lawyers insist Harry had good relationship with Mail's royal editor. Continuing to ask Prince Harry about his relationship with Daily Mail royal editor Rebecca English, Anthony White says there were two occasions. I'm sorry. I need something for my lips. I am so sorry, but it's dry, and I don't want my lip to split. Connie Balmer. Oh, that's so much better. That is so much better. Okay, so Prince Harry says, Anthony White says there were two occasions where Harry had private calls with her. Prince Harry says, if true, he was probably advised to say thank you to her. He repeats that it was difficult working with English and others knowing the kind of stories they had written about me. They go on to have a short and sharp exchange. White, I put it to you that you had a good relationship with Miss English. Harry, chuckling, no, I did not have a good relationship with Miss English. Quite the opposite. Next. Okay. A&L lawyer and Harry disagree over origins of a 2004 article. Next, court turns its attention to an article written by the Daily Mail royal editor Rebecca English in 2004. It's titled How Harry Fell in Love, and it's about his relationship with Chelsea Davy. In the article, there is a scene described whereby Harry reportedly sits around a campfire in Botswana telling people next to him that he has fallen in love with Davy. Oh my God, that sounds so phony. Harry says in his witness statement that he would not have shared such information with strangers around a campfire. Anthony White suggests Harry wrote about this incident in his novel Spare, published in 2023, and goes on to show an excerpt which sees Prince Harry tells three close friends of his need to see Chelsea again. Prince Harry says White suggesting his friends were the sources, which would be an extraordinary thing. Put it to him that English's evidence is that someone who was sat at the campfire called the paper and gave the tip, Harry says. You're trying to force this quote into the book without reference or acknowledgement that these were three of my closest friends. Why are they trying Harry? Why are they trying him? Do you see why they hurried up and got him off the witness stand? Do you see why they wanted to hurry up and get Harry off the witness stand? Because he was not playing with these people. In his witness statement, Harry accuses the press of trying to drive me to drugs and drinking. As we reported in a little earlier, um, uh, we in the newsroom were looking through Prince Harry's witness statement, published earlier as he started giving evidence. In it, he says private information being attributed to sources and friends by the paper led him to suspect those close to him were providing tips to journalists rather than the details being gathered by unlawful means. Harry gives an example of an article from 2005 about his then relationship with Chelsea Davy, which included information that goes into an extraordinary level of detail and made him feel he was part of an endless pursuit, a campaign, an obsession of having every aspect of my life under surveillance. He says seeing these articles drove him paranoid beyond belief, and that the papers wanted to drive me to drugs and drinking to sell more of their papers. I love Harry. Associated Newspapers Limited, the publisher of the Daily Mail and the Mail on Sunday, has denied allegations of unlawful information gathering. It argues that the case has been brought too late and strongly defends its journalists in the face of the accusations. Next. Harry says press secretaries would not provide information about his love life. We now move into an article about Prince Harry's relationship with Cressida Bonus. It was published on the 27th of December, 2013, and says that they spent Christmas apart as she had traveled to Richard Branson's island. In his witness statement, Prince Harry writes, again, this article is creepy. Kensington Palace should not be talking about private matters, but just because someone said Cressida's not coming for Christmas, how did they know she was on Richard Branson's island? The story was inaccurate. The court hears, and Prince Harry's press secretary reached out and corrected journalist Rebecca English. Anthony White suggests that his press office would give guidance information to the press about him. Prince Harry says it's job there to give guidance, but would not give information. Okay? They're giving guidance. They're making sure that they have the correct story, but they're not giving out the information. The Duke says the press secretaries would provide information on things that affect the entire institution. Yes. My love life? No. Okay? My love life? No. The institution? Yes. Okay. So once again, the judge interrupts Harry's evidence again. Prince Harry has just been stopped again for trying to argue his case himself because Harry is messy and don't feel like that BS. The Duke tells the judge he thinks it's really important to put the color and the context back into the story, which he says A&L has stripped. It's okay, he says, when you're under 24-hour surveillance. So, as you can see, Harry, our Ginger Avenger, stood up for himself. He did not even want to leave it to his lawyer. He certainly did not want to expect Daily Mail's lawyers to tell the entire truth. He wanted to make sure that everything was kept in the proper context. And again, that is why they only went through 4 of the articles for discussion. 10 things that they could have asked or addressed him about, they did not even want to do it. They got him off the witness stand, lickety split. They wanted no more of the Duke of Sussex because things were not going well for the defense. It really wasn't going well for them. I think the judge kind of felt sorry for them by trying to stop Harry from arguing the case. Well, anyway, he's really not supposed to do that. That's for the lawyers to do. Harry's job is to answer the questions, but Harry wanted to make sure that he got full consideration by keeping things in proper context. And for that, you cannot blame him. So these are the last two. Prince Harry had just left the witness box, but in his final answer, he appeared to become emotional. Harry tells the court that the private information in the article he is relying on for his case, most of which Mr. White decided not to cross-examine me on, is the kind of information that is shared one-on-one in phone calls or voicemails, for example. He says he never shared information off the record with one journalist. Never, not with a single journalist has he shared information off the record. Asked about another journalist and whether she knew how to work people, Harry says he believes this was through blagging, presenting to be someone or pretending to be someone else to gain access, which we just went over the definition of that. Now, he tells the court his life has been open season to be commercialized and that it has been since he was a teenager. With every aspect of his personal life delved into, he adds that having to sit in court and have them claim I don't have any right to privacy is disgusting. He says he believes it is fundamentally wrong. That they are having to go through this again. Harry then appears to become emotional as he says, it has been a horrible experience that they continue to come after me. They have made my wife's life a absolute misery. My Lord, he said, with his voice faltering. Harry appeared emotional as he left the courtroom, sniffling as he exited. Boy, I tell you. Hey, what frustrates me about this and about the tabloids in general is the tabloids, the Royal Rotas, the Derangers, all of these people that try to paint one of the most honest people that they'll ever encounter as a liar, as manipulative. When it's the tabloid media that are the liars, they're the manipulators, the troublemakers, the shapeshifters. They could be one thing on this occasion and another thing on another occasion. They seamlessly gather information, and if they cannot get the information, they will hire someone to do it. And then they will insert themselves amongst a circle of people who could have shared that information. You got to admit that is clever. That is clever. Is to get the information by whatever means, including listening to other people's voice messages, and then pretend as though showing up at a party or showing up on one of those tours or whatever constitutes the level of access that made these revelations possible in the first place. It's like I said, when you have the truth on your side, you don't have to be the most clever person. You don't have to be the most intelligent person. You just have to tell the truth. That is always going to be more compelling than the worst lies, or the best lies for that matter. So I have this for you. I love this, and I'm going to share it with you.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot has been made of the fact that yesterday, Anthony White Casey for Associated Newspapers was supposed to do opening statements for 2 days, and he only did 2 hours, which pushed Prince Harry into the box a day early. And this is a technique that can be used to try and rattle a witness. And then today, interesting that they only cross-examined Harry for 2 hours. Now, in my experience, if you have a witness on the ropes, you keep going. He was due to be cross-examined for a day, and they took him out. They pulled him early because I think Harry was doing well, actually. Now, I think what a lot of people think about Harry is that he's a playboy and he's not very bright, but actually, he's intelligent, he's articulate, he's genuine, he comes across genuinely, and also he knows these issues inside out. He's lived this case, and that makes, in my experience, for a very compelling witness. And I think that although there were no hammer blows landed by either side today, I think Harry held up well enough that they thought, this is damaging to us. And he said a few things. For example, he said, I feel like they were trying to drive me to drink and drugs to make more press out of me. He talked about the misery inflicted on Meghan and started choking up. This is the kind of emotional stuff that cuts through to the public. And I think maybe there was a tactical decision by Associated's lawyers that this isn't going well, we should pull him out early so he doesn't do any more damage.
I'm going to let you listen to that again. I'm going to let you listen to it again.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot has been made of the fact that yesterday, Anthony White Casey for Associated Newspapers was supposed to do opening statements for 2 days, and he only did 2 hours, which pushed Prince Harry into the box a day early. And this is a technique that can be used to try and rattle a witness. And then today, interesting that they only cross-examined Harry for 2 hours. Now, in my experience, if you have a witness on the ropes, you keep going. He was due to be cross-examined for a day, and they took him out. They pulled him early because I think Harry was doing well, actually. Now, I think what a lot of people think about Harry is that he's a playboy and he's not very bright, but actually, he's intelligent, he's articulate, he's genuine, he comes across genuinely, and also he knows these issues inside out. He's lived this case, and that makes, in my experience, for a very compelling witness. And I think that although there were no hammer blows landed by either side today, I think Harry held up well enough that they thought, this is damaging to us. And he said a few things. For example, he said, I feel like they were trying to drive me to drink and drugs to make more press out of me. He talked about the misery inflicted on Meghan and started choking up. This is the kind of emotional stuff that cuts through to the public. And I think maybe there was a tactical decision by Associated's lawyers that this isn't going well, we should pull him out early. So he...
This is not going well. This is not going as expected. This is not exactly what we had in mind. They thought that they were going to hem him up or stitch him up in some kind of way where he would, I guess, panic or have a loss for words or make some kind of misstep. And it just did not happen. If anything, he showed enough self awareness that he could have seriously argued this case himself. Although they say anyone who represents themselves has a lawyer has a fool for a lawyer, so that's just something that's not done. But I'm saying he very well could have done it because he's not the dimwit that they try to make him out to be. That he's actually incredibly bright and intelligent, and as the guy said, quite articulate. Nobody's fool. Some time ago when I saw him on the Me You Can't See with Oprah, and I'm looking at little Harry, this little boy I've been knowing since he was born. I'm looking at this kid, all grown up, sitting, on a panel discussion with Oprah Winfrey, someone who has devoted most of her career to mental health and well being. Oprah was keen to do this docu series or documentary, whatever, with Harry because of their mutual feelings about mental health and well being. So Oprah's idea was to do something across the U.S. And Harry, out of his own judgment, approached Oprah and said, listen, this is much bigger. We have to make this a global effort. And so instead of just looking for people who have been through trauma in the United States, they found I think it was a Palestinian kid or Lebanese child or whatever. There was a guy from someplace else who was being persecuted for his sexual identity. I mean, it was a much broader array of humanity than what Oprah had proposed. So Harry, who can't do anything without his brother's approval, Harry, who doesn't know up from down, was the one who suggested that they make something global out of what Oprah thought should be just this, story of mental health in the United States. And it turns out it was the right call. And I knew in that moment that they got him wrong, that they don't know him. They suggest who he is, but they don't know who he is. They don't know enough about him. They don't see him as Meghan sees him. They don't see him as his true friends see him. The whole goal is to make it seem as though Harry couldn't do anything without his brother. The same way that they raised poor Princess Margaret, this idea that she would be nothing without her sister. And based upon that is a justification. They wanted to make sense. They wanted to click in your head as a subject that the queen is the queen, not because of her birthright, but because she's so wise and caring. She has been a mother to her own sister, right? And the same with William. He's so wise and so caring that he has had to lead his brother, whose life was in a downward spiral. No wonder they're so upset. because it didn't play out the way they planned. Harry is the one that got away. But for every Harry, there's plans for the next one and the next one. So, hacked off campaigned for the free, accountable press. Before we get to that, let's take a look at this. Peter Hunt, who used to be one of the, I don't know if he was a Rhoda or not, but he was more status quo. But now he's, he's calling it as he sees it. And his Windsor family is nowhere to be seen. To understand the king's failure to see his son, you need to remember that his wife's son writes for the Mail, and one of his trusted aides is a former senior employee. Okay? This is Peter Hunt, a journalist himself. To understand the king's failure to see his son, you need to remember that his wife's son writes for the Daily Mail and that his trusted aide is a former senior employee of the Daily Mail. Now, Mimi Roche says King Charles III been silent in the face of every press attack, every threat, every arrest, every bigoted racist incident. He not only didn't protect his son, Prince Harry, and his family following these threats, he actively took steps to leave them more vulnerable. He actually took steps to leave them more vulnerable. Brazen Hussey says his Windsor family fully supports the Daily Mail against him. Remember, his brother gave an exemption to his senior aide, Jason Knopf, so he could provide evidence on behalf of the Daily Mail against Meghan. His testimony was not subpoenaed, but offered willingly. In other words, they didn't have to go look for Jason. He volunteered. And the only way that could happen was if William gave consent to violate the confidentiality of his position within the institution. He gave Jason a free pass. Do what you will. Say whatever you want to say. Help the Daily Mail defeat Meghan. But remember, they say that Harry and Meghan owe the family an apology. They owe Charles an apology for having their security stripped away. And of course, they who else do they owe an apology to? Anyway, oh yeah. They well, never mind. Anyway, let's move on. And then of course, Millie Dowler. Let's not forget Millie. This is a young lady that was it the News of the World that they tapped into her voicemails that they retrieved messages, even though Millie had been unalived. It led to false hope. It redirected um, the police during a very crucial time in the investigation as to her whereabouts. They gave false hope that she might be alive and just not able or not interested in talking to her family. And how did that happen? Because they listened to her messages. So when when the investigators tried to listen to the messages, they realized that someone had beat them to it. Oh my goodness, that must mean that Millie is still alive. She's somewhere out there. We know it because she called and listened to her messages. Didn't she? No, she did not. No, she did not. That was the tabloid media overstepping the mark as usual. Again. This is not really germane, but why does the judge remind me of Truman Capote? Do you mean to tell me that author Truman Capote, who's been dead for decades, do you mean to tell me he's the judge in this case? How is that possible? Now, I didn't catch the name. Was it Judge Capote? How is Truman Capote judging this case? I don't understand it. Truman Capote, who went on the Dick Cavett show. Truman Capote, who used to go to Studio 54, seems to be the judge in this case. Or is it the ghost of Winston Churchill? Kind of confusing, isn't it? Aside from everything I just said, I think this is probably the one thing you'll remember is that somehow Truman Capote and or Winston Churchill seems to be the presiding judge at this Huh? How is that? I'm just asking for a friend. Anyway, I could only be serious for so long. Now, let's go up to Scotland, shall we? Moment Kate sprints past her security to greet a well wisher with flowers. A fan goes wild for her off script behavior. That is the most physical activity that I've seen Kate participate in since this whole surgery of January 2024. Now that we know she can sprint, we already know that she can go up and down ski slopes. Is she well enough to work now? Now, does that mean she's going to do some work? Now, will she go and cut a ribbon or unveil a plaque somewhere? Is it time yet? Or do we still have to pretend like she's suffering from nausea, from what is it, morning sickness? Remember, that's how she was able to get out of work during her pregnancies, is that she had a severe case of morning sickness. So she can't work. And then after the children were born, each and every child, she still really couldn't work because she was on maternity leave, right? Then she'll come back for Wimbledon and then she'd take off again because, well, after all, she is raising the future king. So she can't work. Don't think about the cooks, the nanny. Don't think about the drivers. Pay no attention to the cleaners. Kate has a household to run. Do you know how much energy it costs to boss people around? Do you know how much energy is used to humiliate 65 employees in your household? Pilots, drivers, cooks, pastry chef, helicopter pilots. It's a lot of work, you guys. I don't think you all realize. You all have been getting her wrong for the longest. It's not that she doesn't work hard, it's just that nobody ever sees it. In other words, it's like a tree that falls in the forest. Did it make a sound? How would we know? Oh, Roy Anika, the Prince of Wales will visit Saudi Arabia at the request of the government for February 9th through the 11th. Prince William's first official visit to Saudi Arabia. The visit, how many times is she going to say visit? The visit will mark growing trade, energy, and investment ties and nearly a century of diplomatic relations. In other words, he needs to try and look like a global statesman. This is an attempt to look like a global statesman. And as for, you know, the work, after all, the British taxpayers are paying $500 million a year for that family. $500 million is how you get Kate to go sprinting across the street. And of course, I'm still trying to wrap my head around this here. Thank you, AI. Thank you. I mean, they look very convincing, don't they? Such is the magic of AI. I wonder if she could do that in real life. Well, she's no Jennifer Lewis. I like to see her do that at Jennifer Lewis's age. I'd like to see her do that at Jennifer Lewis's age. Yeah, if you want to impress me, you have to be Jennifer Lewis. Wait, do I have a picture of Jennifer Lewis doing her thing? Surely I do. Oh, there she is. There you go. This is how you impress me. That is how you impress me. The perpetual scene stealer, Jennifer Lewis, isn't done bearing her soul. I'm glad she's only bearing her soul. Anything else, and I. Never mind. Never mind. Let's just hope she stops with her soul, shall we? Because she's a little spontaneous, too spontaneous. Now, Brooklyn Beckham claims parents pressured him to sign away rights to his name. They were trying to control this kid so much that upon marriage, they wanted the name back because that's part of their what do you call it? Their bottom line. This is how they earn money. The Beckhams, they're not exactly a reality show, but they very much have that reality show energy where there's constant photographs and videos being uploaded throughout the day. And so a lot of celebrities, they will copyright their children's name, right? Harry and Meghan has copyrighted their children's name. Who am I thinking of? Oh, yeah, I believe Beyonce. Pretty much all of those people. If they're a celebrity, they have copyrighted their children's name. It is necessary to do that. Otherwise, anybody could make a product and associate it to your children. So it's necessary. Oh, yes. Thank you. Brand is part of their brand. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you so much. Brooklyn Beckham has issued a scathing statement featuring multiple allegations against his famous parents, including the claim that the pair attempted to bribe their son into signing away the rights to his name before he said, "I do" to his wife. Weeks before the big day, my parents repeatedly pressured me and attempted to bribe me into signing away the rights to my name, which would have affected me, my wife, and our future children. Brooklyn claimed in the social media statement shared via Instagram stories on Monday. They were adamant on me signing before my wedding date, because then the terms of the deal would be initiated. He further alleged, oh my goodness, that's real small. Hold on, let me do this. Okay. Okay. He further alleged in the upload, my holdout affected the payday, and they have never treated me. I think it treated me the same since, or something like that. That is so hard for me to believe. I always thought that the Beckhams and and their children, I always thought the Beckham as a family, I thought they were very close, very strong, close, tight. But it seems as though Brooklyn has been miserable for a very long time. For a very long time. So there's a lot going on there. All right, check this out. So Victoria Beckham's dancing footage emerged, and it's nothing like Brooklyn claims. Brooklyn Beckham accused his mom, Victoria, of dancing on me inappropriately at his wedding to Nicola Peltz. In a seething statement which has sent shockwaves throughout the world. But then take a look over here on the right, or in the middle, if you will. Brooklyn Beckham's wedding guests confirm Victoria's danced on her son inappropriately. Oh, God, I don't like the sound of that. But anyway, Brooklyn Beckham and Nicola Peltz tied the knot back in 2022. Now, one of their wedding guests has joined the conversation after he accused his mom. Oh, I don't want to read that anymore. But listen, Muriel, who does amazing research, says, same newspaper, 5 hours apart. Now, see, I thought they only did stuff like this with Harry and Meghan. The same newspaper, the Mirror Group. And one paper alludes that it did not happen. And the other paper, oh, for sure that happened. What are you talking about? Of course that happened. Same paper, within 5 hours of each other, And the whole mood of the story has changed. Anyway, you guys, I have just a little bit left, and that is we're going to go back to the 1950s. Yes, we're going back to the 50s. Do you recognize that lady? Anybody recognize that lady? Surely you don't recognize the soldier. Well, let me tell you, one of my favorite celebrities, actors of all time. It is said that in 1954, in a military hospital in Japan, a young American soldier lay motionless on a gurney, his back broken, his face turned downward. He couldn't sit up. He couldn't even turn his head. All he could do was see the floor, the cold edge of the bed, a worn pillow that kept him more company than anyone else. His days were made of silence, the sharp smell of disinfectant, the hours that seemed to have no end. Then she entered the room, Marilyn Monroe. She was touring to visit American troops, moving through the wards filled with the wounds and exhaustion, bringing with her a light that seemed out of place in such surroundings, a warm breath in a space built of bandages and pain. When she reached that soldier, she understood immediately. He couldn't see her at all. He couldn't lift himself, couldn't turn, couldn't take part like others. He couldn't even look at the face of the most famous woman in the world. But Marilyn didn't make it awkward. She didn't ask for help. She didn't look for a camera or a sensational headline. She simply knelt down, leaned forward, and gently slipped her face between the gurney so that she appeared upside down, right within his field of vision. And there she was. He smiled, and she smiled back. For a few seconds, pain loosened its grip. The war was no longer the war. The hospital was no longer just a hospital. The young man was no longer patient number who knows what. He was simply a person truly seen by another human being. No applause, no rehearsed jokes, no posed moments, just a simple, deeply human truth. If someone cannot rise to see you, you lower yourself so they can see you. The photograph said to have come from that moment does not show a diva. It shows something rarer, a quiet empathy, strong enough to change the air in the room, because sometimes true greatness isn't under the spotlight. It's in the willingness to kneel and lift someone's spirit, even if only for an instant. Isn't that a beautiful thing? I saw that and I just fell in love with the story. The only thing I haven't figured out is who's doing his finger waves. You see that? He's got to have a wave cap somewhere. And I think that's really nice that they helped him keep his waves. And here's another one of my favorite pictures of Marilyn Monroe. This is Marilyn Monroe back in the 50s at Midway International Airport. It is on the southwest side of Chicago. Marilyn Monroe definitely uh, did her job during the, I guess this would have been the Korean War. I think it's the Korean War. Yeah, she definitely did her job during the Korean War. So there she is, the most famous woman on the planet, speaking to some soldier whose name has been lost to history. Some people say he bears a striking resemblance to Steve McQueen. I kind of see it. I don't see it. I'm not sure yet. This is an actor who was paid to speak as though he was Harry in the witness box. I believe they used this guy before. Oh, he's a terrible actor, but I believe they used him before. I wish they wouldn't do that. But I guess, you know, if it helps people to understand better, why not? Anyway, you guys, I'm going to cleanse your palate with this beautiful image of Marilyn Monroe. I'll look at the last comments that you have available, and then we will say good night or good morning. God bless. And yes, that is Marilyn Monroe. Uh, let's say there, Marilyn Monroe had a lot in common with Princess Diana. Both had such a high emotional intelligence and were able to relate to people on their level. And both of them were taken too young. Same age, right? They both died at the same age. Forever young, as the songs say, forever young. But yeah, I could see that. Oh yeah, they did not release that video. The only people that have access to that video are, um, husband and wife, Brooklyn and his wife. They are the ones who own the video. So I don't suspect that we are going to see it. Okay. Anything else? Oh, really? Trust and inheritance tied to what? What did I miss? Right? Kate breached protocol by running ahead of her security. You are so right about that. Where are the scathing headlines confronting her about her faux pas? How insensitive of her. Yeah, they underestimated Harry, a costly mistake. Harry is very smart. We know that because Meghan is highly intelligent. If Harry hadn't been able to keep up with her, she wouldn't have wanted him. Well, that is something to consider, isn't it? I believe she saw his humanity and she couldn't possibly leave him in that institution. To know Harry is to love and respect Harry. How could you just leave him with those evil people. They're evil. Those evil people. Oh, is that what it is? The Beckham name and his prenup gives his wife access to a trust from Victoria's father. Oh. So, in other words, he'll never go hungry. Wow. Did not think about that. That's interesting. They said that David Beckham had a falling out with his father for like 5 years or something like that. They didn't talk. And I used to think David Beckham was such a nice guy. Boy, did I have him pegged wrong. Yep, boy, did I have him wrong. Okay, you guys, I think we're good. I'll leave it at that. Oh, 2 hours and 41 minutes. Good Lord. How have I been on here so long? My goodness. I had no idea that I'd been on here so long. Did you all know it? I mean, this is a surprise for me. I'm so glad we had this time together just to have a laugh or sing a song. Seems like we get started, and before you know it, comes the time we have to say so long. Good night, everybody. Y'all recognize that song? Yes, Valentino. Valentino passed away. Valentino, the famous designer. What's confusing is that there are two houses of Valentino, but the little emperor, the last emperor, they call him, that Valentino is the one that most of us are familiar with. He passed away recently, like what, 2 or 3 days ago? Okay. Good night. I don't know what happened to the Ginger Avenger. I had it there and now I cannot find it. Oh, I know what I can do though. That is easy to remedy. So easy to remedy. Prince William going to Saudi Arabia. Well, after being such a good boy, you know, playing nice with his wife, like they're so close, he is going to be rewarded with a trip to Saudi Arabia. I wonder if he's going to take the what is that title that Jason has? Yeah, I wonder if they'll go together. Maybe. Hmm. 3 years ago, I made that video. Ginger Avenger. Okay, good night, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to try to play Ginger Avenger before I go, though, in case you stick around. Okay. How do I find that? All right. This is weird. I have to download my own video because I cannot find the original. I may not have it anymore. When my other computer crashed, I may have lost it. Which is scary to think of, but I may have lost it. Good night, everyone. We're done for today. I'm just looking at something here. But feel free to take off and start your day or say good night. Still cannot find it. There's got to be an easier way to do this. It's got to be. You guys know I got like about 2,600 videos, almost 3,000 videos, I think. And most of them are not shorts. I can assure you that. They're not shorts. There it is right there. Okay, so I'm downloading Ginger Avenger so that I will have it myself. Cannot believe I lost that video. Okay, so I'm going to move this back over here. So in the future, if I need to close with the Ginger Avenger, I can. So weird that I didn't have that anymore. Now you can see why I named this Nobody's Fool. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up, you guys. Please hit that thumbs up. That's interesting. It won't let me and say that I have too many videos. All right, let me see how I can make that work. Darn it, it ain't working. Oh, man. Oh, well. I'll have to try to work on this for another time. In the meantime, I can do it like this, I believe.